So hello and welcome to the Big Freeze Art Festival. Today I'm joined by Lesley Burr, who in 2019 was the Friends of the Scott Paula Research Institute Artist in Residence visiting the Canadian Arctic. So Lesley, perhaps you can tell us a bit about that trip to the Arctic.
It was the most incredible experience, and even the theme of the trip was just wonderful because it was kind of wildlife, art and landscape, which are all they're all kind of total themes that I'm interested in. So we were able to see not just the landscape and the wildlife, but also kind of meet kind of artists, Inuit artists, and actually see their work and kind of understand a little bit more about how they're inspired by the landscape. So that was really wonderful, and I think it's been an incredibly rich part of the experience for me.
So you get to go on this trip, you arrive in the Arctic, it's presumably very cold. How do you go about kind of documenting your experiences and producing enough that when you get home you've got enough information at your fingertips that you can produce some artworks?
Well, probably initially there's the camera, so we've got kind of cameras just for kind of snaps on the go. But I did actually take some, I did some film footage, and I also did some little sketches like on the plane on the way over. So I'm not quite sure if I'll come to the right page, but I've got this little sketchbook that I took with me, and that kind of accompanied me. It just sticks in your pockets. It's fantastic. So doing sketchbook and recording things as I go along, I've pretty much always got a sketchbook like with me on a journey, like even short car journeys. And I just really love it as a way of recording and researching experiences. So it is a form, it is my kind of creative research, and it helps me kind of understand what it is I'm actually looking at. And I think you can also document, I'm just having a wee look here, I think you can also document aspects which you think they can almost seem meaningless at the time, but that you start to kind of build a thread of ideas, like through the sketches and through the words and the descriptions and some of the colours. So it's great to go back to start kind of doing some larger paintings from.
And I'm just imagining, did you always have a sketchbook growing up, or was there a moment where you thought, you know what, I just need to carry one of these with me at all times?
Well, I studied at Glasgow School of Art, and I think drawing was just completely central to practice. You know, I mean, I spent a lot of time in the life room, and probably before that at school, I kind of remember kind of even in my application process, like having a sketchbook was actually regarded as quite a good method for application. And I think since then, and because of the way I've, kind of interacted with peers and other artists, friends, I've just found that that's been a really useful way to continue recording ideas. And I think you can feel quite free about drawings don't have to be finished, like paintings don't have to be finished. But, and I also like writing and kind of poetry. I don't write poetry, but I do love sort of poetry and descriptions as part of another aspect of researching ideas and of remembering. So maybe you could say that my memory, sometimes I think I struggle to remember things, but I think it's like a visual diary in a way. So like I say, I've always really loved that as a way of recording and interpreting like what you're seeing.
Mm-hmm. So with your diary at your fingertips then, is there any particular sort of day in your life on that residency that springs to mind, and what did you get up to?
Oh, well, there's one fantastic day. Like we went to Kimaru, which is a very sort of remote kind of Inuit community. And apparently at the end of July, or it might be in the 1st of August, we were the first ship to arrive, and the first sighting apparently this sort of community were actually having that summer, because there'd actually been a lot of ice earlier. So one of the things that happened was I was actually out sketching, and just in the harbour area, or looking onto this kind of big rock, which was actually shaped like a heel. So apparently Kimaru means shaped like a heel. Mm-hmm. And I just gathered this collection of children around me, and they were standing kind of watching, and just kind of quite fascinating. It was totally delightful. I got them to they had a wee go at kind of some pencil sketching as well. Mm-hmm. You know, so whilst I'm quite comfortable with sketching outside, I'm probably not always so comfortable with having an audience, because you think you have to get it all right and everything. But there was some really lovely conversations through that, and it was just, Yeah, I think to meet some of the local community was quite special, especially the children.
Yeah. And you said that you met some of the Inuit artists as well. What kind of things did you get from that? I'm imagining it was a combination of just really nice conversations, but also perhaps some new techniques.
Well, we were so fortunate to visit Cape Dorset, you know, the artist studios at Cape Dorset. And so it's Kingate Artist Studios. And the artist had put on a demonstration of lithography for us, and it's stone lithography. And it is so difficult you can see the techniques, it's so difficult to do that. And I have actually tried stone lithography before, but I had a technician, actually a master printmaker working alongside me. So these are not techniques I think I can just take away and learn, but I was really grateful for the opportunity to see the artist's work and, you know, do some of the kind of etching into the stone, but then also produce a print from it and just get a little bit of an idea how they might work with that process. Because many of the images I've got, you know, they're kind of quite nature inspired, and they definitely relate to the kind of landscape around, you know, which surrounds them. So that was it was good to see that as well.
I can see in your background you've got some ice and some, is that icebergs maybe in an animal? So
yeah, so this is just a photograph. So I've sketched from sketchbooks, but I do use photographs as well. So this is like this is just looking down on the bridge of the Resolute, looking down into the water, and actually the groan and the sound of the ice kind of hitting the ship, and that sort of rhythm. That was something that I really loved, and I actually missed it when we left. In fact, and so I'll just maybe kind of grab a few things here. These are, if I can unpin this. This is a fox. Which you can maybe see. So I've been using this for printmaking, and at the moment I'm doing some jelly plates. I'm working with jelly plates, and I'll show you this one as well. This is like a new, like kind of monoprint. So this is using a jelly plate and a variety of different techniques with stencils. So I think some of that has come through observing the artists working in their studio, and also beginning to do a bit more research with some of the artists' work who are particularly from Cape Dorset, because that is it's quite a special area in terms of a special area and place in terms of the production, like the art production and the whole interest and contemporary interest and actually Inuit art, and also the kind of sculpture as well. So that was, you know, while I went to the Arctic thinking I would be recording all landscape, it's that kind of ethnography side of things, you know, the cultural experience of how humans interact with the landscape, which really grabbed me. And I realised that I probably have to go back. That's what I think.
You are not the first person to have said that. It's fair to say. Yeah, the last person I spoke to for one of these interviews said, you know, you go once and that's it, you're hooked. So
the only thing I was just going to share was just at the end, if anyone was interested in like kind of sketchbook, what's kind of manageable are these are just a little sketchbook. So these are kind of, so sometimes I do kind of imaginative like works which are just totally from my memory, what I remember, and it's just really what I've got handy. So these are kind of oil pastels, like water soluble oil pastels. But the other thing that I've usually got with me, I just thought folk might like to see, is my favourite watercolour set. And bits and pieces, coloured pencils. So coloured pencils, wax crayons and watercolour set. In fact, they all fit in your pocket.
I was just imagining your pockets bulging with all sorts of amazing colours and pigments. So if you had a top tip for anyone then, it sounds like it would be make sure you buy coats with big pockets. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think in a way, I think no matter what way you observe what you see. I did do some writing as well, and I could finish by just reading a little excerpt from a kind of diary. So I produced this on the One Oceans paper, which was in the cabins. So this is actually from August the 5th, and it's more about the description of Digges Island, which was this really remote community where which was a kind of an outpost for the Hudson Bay Company. So it was a Hudson Bay Company outpost for trappers. I can't begin to imagine what it must have been like in the winter. It's so remote no ground for growing, and barren and bleak. The plants however, the plants, these tiny miniature plants, are incredible. Lichens, mosses, Arctic saxifrage, blueberries, willow, but they're at a tiny level and incredibly old. Looking closely, there's a hidden world of special plants adapted to the Arctic climate. Bones are bleached white, light with black lichen growing on the surface. Everything is incredibly dry, which you read about, but it always surprises you. Caribou spotted down by the river, dark in colour. So I find that those sort of descriptions are helpful as well. So,
and that really reminds me of when we're reading the accounts of people who travelled to the Arctic in the 19th century or even the 20th century, who were there perhaps looking for shipping lanes or all sorts of things, but they were recording what they saw as well, and it was kind of adding to the scientific record. So again, we go back to that idea of documenting what you're doing for research purposes, and as well as producing, well, en route to producing art, really.
Yeah, I think one never quite knows. I think as an artist or creative practitioner, you never quite know exactly what you're going to pick up, and it's really good to be open, like a bit like a sponge, and just let these things affect you. Because I was quite interested in the tiny plants, how they manage to grow, and they're like little miniature worlds. And there was also a botanist on the ship, like, who was talking about them. So I think the kind of scientists, the other specialists, they can actually unlock imagery which you wouldn't normally have access to, which is actually very rich and inspiring.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me today. It's been a real pleasure. For those of you at home who are watching, we've got another short film that Lesley's made where there are some photographs and videos of her experience in the Arctic. And we're also putting together an online exhibition for the Big Freeze Festival. So there'll be an artwork in there for you to find as well. So thank you very much, Lesley. And thank you
very much. Thank you very much for inviting me.